Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Shadow Realm, this is YuGiOh Duel Links Talk. Here's your host, Doug Dimmaduel.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of YuGiOh Duel Links Talk. Today I want to revisit the Fiend type deck build, just because we're getting a little bit of a boost with the most recent Paradox Brothers event. And if you're not aware of which boost I'm talking about, it's the card that you're able to obtain through the event points, and it's Archfiend Palabyrinth, and it is a field spell card where all Fiend type monsters you control gain 500 attack. You can target one Archfiend monster you control and banish one other Fiend type monster you control, and if you do, special summon from your hand, deck, or graveyard one Archfiend monster with the same level as the targeted monster, and you can only use this effect of Archfiend Palabyrinth once per turn. So now, because of this event, we're able to at least get that second copy of Archfiend Palabyrinth and pretty much get a little more consistency and hopefully get a little bit more use out of this field spell card. So what I wanted to do, and this is just a fun idea that I was just throwing together this afternoon or this morning, whatever you want to call it, and start just kind of playing around with different Fiend type deck builds, is trying to utilize Archfiend Palabyrinth and yeah, just see where we could go from there. So you're going to see a lot of similar formatting to my recent Fiend deck that revolved around Dark Necrofear, because we're going to run a similar deck. We're going to keep on experimenting with this one and make a few tweaks, but I kind of like playing it so far. It's been pretty cool. It's got a nice big attack boost, a nice surprise factor to it, but so far what we got are the two copies of Dark Necrofear, pretty standard, the level 8 Fiend, 2200 attack, 2800 defense. It cannot be normal summon or set, but must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 Fiend type monsters from your graveyard. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed by an opponent's card this turn, by either battle or card effect, and sent to your graveyard while it was a monster card under your control, target one face-up monster your opponent controls and equip this card to that target. While this card is equipped to a monster by this effect, take control of that monster. So you already know what it does. It's just a really powerful card, and it works really, really well once you start losing some of your monsters to either battle or effects. Then end up getting this card in your hand as quickly as possible, and then activating its effect once you have at least 3 Fiends in your graveyard. The next card that I like to use is Trance Archfiend, and this one combos out really well. Not just to kind of help you get that Dark Necrofear fodder in the graveyard, because its effect does allow you to send a Fiend type monster from your hand to the graveyard, but also too because it boosts its attack to 2000. And why this is so significant is because using Archfiend Palabyrinth allows you to boost the attack up to basically 2500, because you're already having a natural 500 attack boost just from having the field spell on the field. So Trance Archfiend's attack is already at 2000, but then you activate its effect to send another Fiend type monster to the graveyard, and it gains 500 more attack. So you're talking about, for the remainder of the turn, you're going to have a 2500 attack monster that doesn't require any tribute summon. It's just a level 4, and also setting yourself up for a Dark Necrofear play in the future. So that's why this deck is just a lot of fun in that regard. I like having the Trance Archfiend combo play, boosting its attack by 500 using its effect, but then also having Archfiend Palabyrinth on the field and making it a 2500 attack monster. So right away, you're able to do some damage and get over quite a few of your opponent's potential monsters rather quickly. So that's kind of my one of my go-to plays with this deck so far. But then next too, I got Dark Druid. It is the level 4 Fiend, 1200 attack, 1500 defense. When this card is summoned, target one face-up monster on the field and it loses 800 attack. Now, the reason why I feel comfortable playing this card in this deck is because having that Archfiend Palabyrinth at least gives it that 500 attack boost, so it's going to be a 1700 attack level 4 monster. Granted that the field spell does stay on the field and makes it on the field, but also at the same time, your opponent is losing 800 attack. So the nice thing is, we're talking about a 1500 point net difference between what you would have your starting point between your Dark Druid's effect reducing your opponent's attack by 800, but also having its effects. I think I did my math wrong on that. I'm at a 1300 difference. Sorry, it's hard to do the mental math there. But your opponent's losing 800 attack, and you're also gaining 500 attack because of the Palabyrinth field spell. So you're talking about a 1300 net difference. So that's going to put you in a lot of good position. Your opponent can be pretty strong. They can have a pretty strong monster on the field, but you'll be able to catch up rather quickly with that combo play. So that's why I like Dark Druid, but it also sets you up to reduce the attack of some of your opponent's stronger monsters for you to later go back and have at it with maybe a stronger monster that you have lined up in your hand or coming out in your deck. What I also like to run in this deck is Shadow Slayer. It's the level 4 Fiend, 1400 attack, 200 defense. Now keep in mind too, its effect is if all monsters your opponent controls are in defense position, this card can attack your opponent directly. So what I like to do is run this card if my opponent is playing more on the defensive side and their strategy is they're setting some cards, maybe they want me to attack into them. Having a copy of Shadow Slayer with the copy of Archfiend Palabyrinth on the field just combos out real well, because now you're talking about a 1900 direct attack to your opponent's life points. So you're already basically getting your opponent's life points cut in half just from this one play if they're playing more on the defensive side. The next card I have is pretty standard for most Fiend decks. I run multiple copies of Doom Dog Octhros, the card that you get at the card trader. Level 3 Fiend, 800 attack, 800 defense. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, add one level 8 Fiend type monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect of Doom Dog Octhros once per turn. So basically, you want to see this card get destroyed while it's on the field. That way you can search out your Dark Necrofear and go from there, hopefully get into a combo play. And now, the next card that I really like, and I run 3 copies of in this deck, is Gilgarth. Level 4 Fiend, 1800 attack, 1200 defense. It's plain vanilla, it is what it is, but because you have Archfiend Palabyrinth and you got multiple copies, odds are you'll see it on the field. Have Gilgarth on the field as well. And basically what you're able to do from there is have a 2300 attack monster immediately on the field. And it's going to help you get over just a whole mess of your opponent's monsters, having a 2300 attack monster on the field virtually immediately. So awesome card. This is why I like to run multiple copies of this. We need stronger Fiend monsters. Another option that you could run in this deck, and I don't personally have it right now, is also just a copy of Summon Skull. And you know it's already got a 2500 attack and only requires 1 tribute. Having Archfiend Palabyrinth on the field while you have your Summon Skull on the field is going to make it a 3000 attack monster, and boom, there you go. You can't get a whole lot better than that from a Fiend perspective. Really good card. So going into the spells, I run Tribute to the Doomed. You discard 1 card, then target 1 monster on the field and destroy it. So not only are you destroying your opponent's monsters in that regard, but you're also sending more Fiends to the graveyard to hopefully get your Dark Necrofear play going sooner. That's why I like this card. If I had more than 1 copy in this deck, I would absolutely run more than 1 copy. But in the meantime, I run 2 copies of Super Rush Headlong. You target 1 face-up monster you control and declare 1 attribute. If that target battles an opponent's monster with that attribute this turn, you destroy that opponent's monster at the start of the damage step. And of course, the card that we just talked about, pretty much the whole time, the Archfiend Palabyrinth, I run both copies of that because you have 2 copies. If we reach a point where we can get a 3rd one, you can bet there will be a 3rd copy in this deck. So, in the meantime, I run Mirror Wall. And that what that does is each of your opponent's monsters that conduct a face-up attack, or conduct an attack while this card was face-up on the field, has its attack halved as long as this card remains on the field. During each of your standby phases, you pay 2,000 life points or destroy this card. So, at least what that does is maybe if I don't have my Archfiend Palabyrinth yet, I could buy some time using Mirror Wall and have my opponents just kind of attack into my monsters and maybe take a little bit of life point damage on their end. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty fun strategy. It's just a nice boost that Fiends can definitely use. Having a 500 attack boost for all your Fiend type monsters works out really well, especially when you got a card like Dark Necrofear, which would basically boosts its attack to a 2700. And like I said earlier, same thing with Dark Druid, so it's going from a 1200 attack monster to a 1700 attack monster. So yeah, it's all pretty good. Now there are some methods that you can use to from a skill perspective to make this deck work better. I personally always like to go with Restart in this case to try and get my Palabyrinth as soon as possible, or if anything, at least know that I could set myself up for a good Dark Necrofear play if I don't necessarily get Palabyrinth right away. Another thing you could use too is Dual Standby, so you start start your duel with at least 5 cards in your hand, which is also a good perk, so you can hopefully get some more of your resources that you would need to run some of your combo plays. So there's multiple methods you could use. Even in some cases, you could even use the effect right back at you. So at least you'll get your monsters that little extra boost if you took some life point damage the turn before. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of methods that you can use from a skill perspective. Some work better than others, but it's worth kind of messing around with. And again, that's kind of the whole point of this deck. It's more of a casual mess around deck, but I always like to see Fiend deck builds, especially when we get additional support. So that's why I kind of got excited and ran out and built this new setup. And yeah, I've been testing it out. It's been doing pretty good casually. The matchups aren't always the best, but then again, that's really not the point of this deck. But it does have a lot of good potential. You can probably make this one a little more competitive with the right pieces. But that's where you, the listener, come in, because I'd like to hear about your take on this type of deck. What deck you've done similar? If you feel like the Palabyrinth's Field Spell card may be overrated, or if you want to see more of these types of decks, or I'd like to hear what you've done, what kind of cards and what kind of decks you've built that may have been similar or even a little bit different than this one, and see what's worked best for you. So yeah, if you want to discuss your deck, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at YuGiOh Deck Talk. It's all one word, at YuGiOh Deck Talk, and I'd like to do another Fiend deck build episode, hopefully in the near future. So yep, anyway, that's it for today's episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.